First of all, Michael Flynn has never denied getting paid for appearing in the RT-hosted event in 2015. So why is there so much hype about these reports, and what's it all about?
Well, yeah, I think the mainstream press, particularly in the United States, leans heavily leftward, heavily in favor of the Democrat Party, still reeling in shock over the elections in November, and failing to come to terms with the brutal reality that they ran a horrible campaign. So they're applying a double standard to their reporting, which is beyond stupid. I mean, we look at, first of all, this particular detail, the appearance of Michael Flynn. Now, Michael Flynn, I should point out, is a Democrat. He is not, he's not a dyed-in-the-world conservative Republican of long standing. He's done great service to this country. And I think if he made a mistake, it may have been in not disclosing fully the nature of his business arrangements to the Trump campaign vetting team as they went through the process. Therein may lie some issues. But as far as his taking payment, reimbursement and payment for his speaking in Russia, I mean, let's think a little bit here about how much money the Clinton family, a former president of the United States, a secretary of state, an aspiring president of the United States, how much the Clinton family has taken from governments around the world in speaking fees that are indefensible. In our country, there's good data on how much money people make. In the top 10% of all American households, the average earner made $93,000 in 2015 for a full year's work. That's the highest paid strata of our economy. And here you're paying Michael Flynn $45,000 for one appearance. That seems rich. But what about Hillary Clinton making $225,000 a speech after speech after speech, $20 million over the course of like 18 months, just after she was Secretary of State and just before she ran for president? Why isn't that the subject of intense focus? And the money that Bill Clinton took and the money that Chelsea Clinton in smaller amounts is now taking, why isn't that getting the same amount of ink? And the answer is because our media has lost its mind.
Other US politicians, including Hillary Clinton, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney and others, have received money for participating in similar events. So why are the mainstream media bashing Mr. Flynn while ignoring the other instances?
Well, because I think the mainstream media is part of the problem. I mean, the mainstream media fails to understand the vast advances in technology since around 1999 to 2002 going forward have made it possible for you and for me to have this conversation, and reach a global audience when you really couldn't do that back in 1998 as readily. So now we have a lot of people who are interested in finding out the truth, sharing the truth, and analyzing the truth. And we're not going to listen to these coddled, media stars who've decided they're the real news story, and they're not doing the work. They're not going and looking at the hard facts that are out there. So the mainstream media has let itself down. It's very much part of this celebrity culture, and they've lost their inquiring minds. Furthermore, I found in my dealing, and I'm more of a numbers guy, that most people who are really good in media and explaining things using words are useless when it comes to numbers. So you take a complex scandal like this one and the Clinton Foundation that is heavily based on numbers, most journalists are lost. They can't get to the truth.
Some media reports suggest that the Democrats are trying to use the emollients clause of the US Constitution to get Mr. Flynn in jail. The provision prohibits government officials as well as our retired military personnel to receive fees, travel expenses, honoria, etc. from a foreign government. First, how likely are the Democrats to succeed? And secondly, how likely is it, for example, that Hillary Clinton could be prosecuted under the same clause?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I have read these reports. I think Flynn is in a special case because he is a retired military person. Hillary is not a retired military person. So, going down that rather detail-oriented track, the Democrats are going to throw anything they can at the Trump administration in an effort to retard its attempts at progress and, frankly, deconstructing, draining the swamp. They're going to do everything they can. They'll throw all kinds of dirt at this mess. How much of it sticks and ultimately, hurts these people? Who knows? I would respectfully say that the whole effort of going into the pay-for-play allegations, the emoluments clause allegations, these are tough things to actually prove. But what is easy to prove is charity fraud. And the charity fraud is a special area of our law where you don't have to prove intent to defraud. All you have to prove is that the charity's filings are false and materially misleading and the charity was soliciting money. And the penalties under U.S., state, and federal law for charity fraud, particularly involving disaster relief, are incredibly stiff. I'll give you a small case. A congressman stands accused of an $800,000 charity fraud. Under our laws, she faces 357 years in federal prison for it. So the Clinton Foundation, where the Hillary and the Clinton team have vast exposure, in my view, is on the whole Clinton Foundation saga. And that's right there in the public domain. All the filings are there. Anyone who wants to care about the law can see it. There are violations of the law, in my opinion, in the U.S., possibly in Russia, in the Ukraine, and many countries. And there, I think, the Clintons have major exposure.
Has anybody actually started proceedings against Hillary with regard to the Clinton Foundation?
Well, there have been reports in our press that there are investigations, multiple investigations underway, led by the FBI field offices, that there is an IRS investigation in the Dallas office of the IRS, and there are rumors of investigations in Canada, in Australia. There should be an investigation in France. France is the biggest donor, believe it or not, to the Clinton Foundation, and I've done a lot of work in France. French law is incredibly strict, and the French take a dim view of foundation fraud. So, I think what's happened, frankly, is that people were surprised that Trump won, and now it's taking Trump extra time to get his team in there. To pull the levers that need to be pulled here, you'd have to clean house at the IRS, which is not yet done. But all it takes is one donor nation. And Norway should be really upset about this. The Norwegian government has given a lot of money to the Clinton Foundation. Canada should be upset. Ireland should be upset. A lot of the big donors should be upset because when this unravels, they face major penalties for having given to a charity that's not properly organized and operated.